All right. So I guess I'll just get started with asking, how are you doing, Professor Bracey? How's your day going?
My day is good. I got up too early, but that's okay.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I feel you on that. So I guess to kind of get us started, since the today's event is entitled the March on Washington, let's kind of talk about what built up. What were the events that led to the original March on Washington in 1963, from your perspective?
The march was in August.
Yep.
But civil rights activity had been picking up. I was in Chicago. I'd transferred from Howard University after spending a year working in the government as a mail clerk to Roosevelt University in Chicago, which was a very radical school. It had been started in 1946 by faculty who left the Central YMCA College because of quotas on blacks and Jews, and they went down to the street, got a building, and formed Roosevelt University. So when I got there in 1961, the university was only 15 years old.
Wow.
But it was full of people that couldn't get jobs other places. The best place I've ever been. And my cousins told me that it might be the only school in the country that would put up with me, so I should try Roosevelt. And they probably were right. So I had wonderful teachers, and it was an activist school. If you had a demonstration, the faculty would come and they'd apologize that they have a class so they couldn't get arrested, but was that okay if they just carried a picket sign, this kind of thing. And they would give you homework to do when you were locked up, this kind of thing. Or if they had the time, they would get arrested with you. And the school was that kind of place. And so it took me about a year to get acclimated because I had come from Washington, D.C., and, I didn't know Chicago very well at all. So I pretty much did school politics. We had a Negro History Club, this kind of thing. But in the spring of 63, even before that, I was active in Chicago Friends of SNCC. Mm-hmm. And so young people would come up from the South to Chicago for R&R. If you've been in the movement, somebody, like I met LaVon Brown that way. He's on the panel with me later on. He had been, the Klan had tried to basically wring his neck off. So he had a neck brace. So they sent him up to Chicago and just said, keep him out of trouble. Jimmy Travis had buckshot because the Klan had shot him with a shotgun. And so he had buckshot. Wow. And so my job was to keep them out of trouble because they were already in the front lines. And they immediately says, why are you helping us? Chicago doesn't look all that great either. So they wanted to know, what's happening in Chicago. So I took them around to some of the things I was doing. So they ended up pushing me to do stuff because they said, you can't just be helping us in Mississippi. You got to strengthen your own city.
And what kind of, and you said doing stuff, what kind of stuff did they have you doing?
Sit-ins.
Okay, sit-ins.
This was nonviolent direct action. We blocked let's say in the fall. You picketed a school board. You picketed construction sites. You had marches downtown in the Loop. It depends on what the issue was. But those are the main things. The big issue in Chicago, there are two big issues. One was the school. Schools are horrible. The most segregated schools in the country. And the person who was working with the most data on that was, in fact, Maya Weinberg, who later came to the School of Ed at UMass. And he died about 2003. And he transferred from the School of Ed into our department, Afro-Am department. So I got to know him really well. But I didn't know him in Chicago. I just knew his name. So if a reporter questioned you on any factual stuff, and they would say, where did you get that? You just say Weinberg, and they back up off you. Because he was like the world's leading expert on equal education opportunity. He was a brilliant guy. And I didn't meet him till he got here. But when I was in Northwestern, he also had a magazine called Integrated Education that published the political stuff I did at Northwestern. So anyway, so I was doing school stuff. And then in the spring, the NAACP decided, they were going to move, they were going to have their convention, 1963 convention in Chicago in July. And that would have been okay because nobody paid any attention to them. But what happened was before the convention, Mayor Daley said that he would welcome the convention, but you didn't need it in Chicago because everything was fine. There were no ghettos and Black people were happy. So building up to the convention, people are getting more and more and more pissed off about like, this is not going to work. This is really not going to work. The second thing that happened is young people were coming from all over the country to the NAACP convention. They brought in, youth councils from the South. So the guys I was working with down in Philadelphia, guys in the Revolutionary Action Movement and Black Nationalist movements, we went to talk to the young people at the hotel the night before the 4th of July meeting in the park. And what we were gonna do, we were gonna picket the convention itself, Mayor Daley, just wave some signs and sit down and listen to the rest of the convention. Mm-hmm. Well, it didn't work out that way. They found out about it. Somebody told somebody, and so they took the Mississippi kids and put them up on the stage. So that was to be the people that were supposed to be out like out store, the guys with us, right? So there were about maybe, 10 of us. And when Mayor Daley came out, we said, well, do we go with just the 10 or do we just forget about it? And so we got to go with what you got, right? So the pictures that I sent in, that I gave copies to Nefertiti of me on the front page of the paper, I'm in the front, not because I was leading anything, it was because they didn't have that many people. And the police were coming, and the police came down all the aisles. It must have been like 10,000 people out in the park with these row chairs. And we start down the middle aisle, and the police come down and block it. So I go to the side and come around behind them, and that's how I ended up in the front, because the police are trying to push us back. And so I end up basically in the front, and then the police regroup, and I'm staring. You can't see him in the picture, but I'm like 3 feet, and it got smaller from the captain in the Chicago Police Department, who was in my face telling me back up. And I would have backed up. I wasn't crazy. And so I tried to back up, but when I tried to push back, I turned around and there were 1,000 people behind me. Like all these people, none of whom I knew, none of whom I had organized, agreed with our stance on the mayor, right? So I'm trying to like back up, but they're pushing me forward. So the captain's standing there, so I think, he says, you have a problem. I said, no, I think you have a problem because I can't back up. So like somebody got to move. So the police backed up and they took the mayor off the stage. The other thing that worked in our favor was that when we started to rush the stage, because we were going to rush the stage, the Mississippi kids kicked the mics out kicked the wires out, the microphone wires out. So the mics went dead on the stage. And once you lose control of the audience with a mic, all you could hear was our chanting. So then by the time they plugged the mics in again, the mayor's talking about this must be the Republicans. But by this time we have, there's already thousands of people behind me pushing and all like that. And the mayor walks off. When we stop him, he doesn't speak. And he walks off the stage. And I'm trying to figure out, do I have a life after this? Because this is Mayor Daley, and he's like, why am I messing with the most powerful political guy in Chicago? And I'm like 22 years old. And I don't have an organization. So the organization name that I give them is the National Afro-American Organization, which I just made up. People now are trying to do research on it, and I keep trying to tell them there's no such organization. And they said, no, I just made it up because they said, what do you belong to? Well, I was not a member of the NAACP. And I wasn't going to tell them I was a member of the Revolutionary Action Movement, which I was. But it was an underground. We had an underground revolutionary group, and we went to Panthers. The Panthers held press conferences. We didn't hold press conferences. That's why I'm saying, because we didn't say, we're going to take on the government and we're going to hold a press conference. No, you don't. You just work with people as they are in motion. That was our strategy. You go where people are doing things and you help people do what they're doing, and you don't try to impose your ideas on other people. But the way people will listen to you was if you were with them, So if you get locked up, you have a lot of time to talk to people. So then you can talk to them about how you don't think the system works very well. And so I was way to the left of most people. I'd been a socialist since I was about 19, after reading Du Bois. When Du Bois said that a system based on private greed could never bring public good. And that settled it for me. That's capitalism, And if you can sell my great-grandparents, then why would I want to belong to a system that sells human beings? You have to go a long way to convince me of the morality of a form of social organization that allows you to sell human beings. There's no morality at all. So, okay, what do you do other than that? Well, I didn't like the Soviet Union and all that. So you look for people of color. So my ideology was, what are people of color doing? So you look to Africa, Asia, China, and wherever, West Indies, wherever there are movements of people of color, that's who you wanted to participate with. So that was my outlook. But in Chicago, but you have to do it where you are. You can't fight, a broad thing. You have to fight in local things. So anything that happened locally, I would go volunteer to participate in. So that's why I ended up organizing NAACP youth councils at this convention. But I didn't have a group. I mean, I wasn't going to say that we had 10 people, because then, it wouldn't have lasted very long. And so the mayor left. And shortly after that, Joseph H. Jackson, who was the head of the Pilgrim Baptist Church and the National Baptist Convention, his wing of the Baptist Church had been in a big fight with Martin Luther King. And all the Baptist people in the audience, church folk, hated him. So I was sitting down trying to kind of recoup to see if I had a life left. And all these other people ran him off the stage because he had, he was so backwards that when they named South Parkway Martin Luther King Drive, he changed the address of his church to a side street. That's how backwards he was.
And is all this is at the NAACP convention that you were talking about?
We ran the mayor off the stage. And at this point, you're looking around because you realize I have taken on like the whole city of Chicago with no backup. And so, I'm not crazy. So I'm sitting there saying like, oh, geez. Like, my aunt worked for the welfare department, and it's like, I had a cousin that worked for curb and gutter for the city, repairing, sidewalks. And so the machine will come after you. I mean, they will really do a job on you. So I'm thinking, oh, crap, they're going to give me tickets every time I drive my car. Which they would do. I mean, they would do that. They would. I'd get a speeding ticket pulling out of my parking space. My Volkswagen. The guy say 70 miles an hour, and I would say like, come on, man, it's 70 miles an hour. And the only thing that saved me were black policemen, because the squad cars weren't integrated before 1965 or so, when the riots broke out. So you had white guys in a squad car and 2 black guys in a squad car. So every time my name would come up, once they knew me, then a squad car with black policemen would roll up and say, what's going on? And then the white cops would say, oh, we just checking IDs or whatever. And then the black cops would ask me, like, where you going? I said, well, I'm trying to go to school. So then they would escort me to the expressway, because they don't give tickets on the expressway. Yeah. No, my protection was, because we were helping the black police organize against the white police inside the police department. So the whole notion of attacking the police like the Panthers did was crazy to us, because these are the people that protected us. And when I got locked up in jail, that's who kept the white policemen from beating us up, well, black policemen. Because, we're singing freedom songs, making a whole lot of noise. And I never forget the first time I got, and this is later, in August, down at 73rd and Low at a school construction site where I got arrested. And we were in Englewood jail, and we're singing freedom songs, making a lot of noise. And this white cop walks into the cell block and says, I want all you niggers and nigger lovers to shut up. Wow. And at this point, the desk sergeant, who was a black guy, they called him heavy. He must have weighed about 270 pounds. And he sat there, all of a sudden, he blocked out the whole light coming down the corridor and stuck his head in the door and said, did I hear somebody say nigger? And so we all pointed to the white guy. He did, he said it. And Harry looked at him and said, get out of here. And then he turned to us and said, I want y'all to shut the F up, because you sing terribly. And we said, yes, sir, Mr. Harry, we're cool. But that's black policemen protecting you from white policemen. So you don't call all policemen pigs. They lived in our neighborhood. If I went to parties with run by the daughter of a police sergeant, and one of the people that was arrested me one time, and they said, like, why are you here? I said, hey, your daughter gave a party. Because I said, I came here to dance, man. I had to cause no trouble. So I said, but that's a different vibe than you have today with people from outside your community. I mean, that's why the policing thing, you don't want to get rid of the police. You want police accountable to you.
Right.
So if the policeman lives around the corner, he's not about to jack up anybody in the neighborhood, because he's at the playground, say like he goes to the church you go to and you see him all the time, So what you want is people accountable to you.
Right.
And so part of our strategy was not to make broad brush attacks on anybody Black. You let them decide for themselves what their attitude was. And so that's July 4th. I had no idea that I was in the front of anything until the newspaper came out on the 5th. Those are the papers I showed. And I walk into the cafeteria at Roosevelt because I'm taking classes all year round to duck the draft, right? Because you get thrown into Vietnam if you're not in school. So I took summer school, winter school, vacation time, everything, right? If you woke me up in the middle of the night, I'm taking school, right? So I took everything, right? So I walked into the cafeteria the next day, and we had a table where all the Black people hung out, a little Black table. They called us the Black Bit of Bolsheviks, and you had to really be down to get to our table. You could sit around the edge of the table, like a lot of famous historians now, like Darlene Clark Hine and Robert Harris, who could sit at the edge of the table, but if you don't have down politics, you can't sit at the table. So we had the table, which is the hardcore guys like us, and kind of followers, maybe like 20, 30 people. And I just walked in for lunch. I came, drove my car down, parked it, by the lake, walked over, and walked in, and people started looking at me. And I kept saying, like, why is everybody looking at me? And then I went and sat down at the table, and they said, like, what'd you do yesterday? I said, no, I was in the park. And they said, we know. Then they showed me the newspaper. And I said, like, oh, hell. And this is just the Sun-Times. I was on the front page of the Tribune, too. Both of the major dailies was my picture stuck up there, like, like whatever.
And how did your family react to seeing you? Essentially you were famous from this. So how did your family react?
I come out of a family of teachers and a family of movement people. By the time I got home, the police had been to my house.
Wow.
Because I stayed down in the park as long as I could. I'm terrified to, like, oh crap. When I go home, I got my mom's car. This is like, it's going to be a mess, right? And so I thought I'd wait a little bit before I actually, kind of delay. So I think I got home and it might be 7 o'clock. And my cousins, I had beautiful cousins. We lived in a duplex, and my mom, how did we live? You see, my cousins had the top floor, and my mom and aunt had the first floor, and I had the whole basement. So they which was really cool because I had this whole basement thing. And when I came in, again, they kind of said, like, how'd it go today? I said, I'm okay. Things are good. And my cousin said, the police came by and asked about you. I said, the police? He said, yeah. They said, they had your picture and everything, and they said that you were an alcoholic and a drug dealer, and a criminal. And I said, what did y'all say? I said, yep, that's him. I said, oh, man. He said, no, maybe it's up for you. The reason I survived, first of all, is my relatives protected me. I had cousins that worked at Teletype, and loading dock guy, working class brothers and sisters. And so my relationship with my neighborhood was such that I could do nonviolent stuff because these guys would say that if anybody ever messes with you, we got them. And I would say, look, I'm not in that. And they say, no, we know you're not in that. But nobody said, we can't be in that. So I could go to a demonstration, but if somebody like broke a picket line, they would jack them up. Like, somebody crossed your picket line, you didn't hit them or anything. But, some white guy breaks through the line, brother comes out the alley, boom, and you still walking with your sign. Like, I don't know what's happening, and nobody goes through your picket line. That's Chicago. Chicago, it's not, it's rough and tumble working class politics. My mother always taught me from the time I was like 5 years old that she taught my sister different, but she said that her favorite poem was a poem by George Douglas Johnson called The Suppliant. And the last line of that poem was, the strong demand contend prevail, the beggar is a fool. I was taught never to complain about anything unless I was going to do something about it. So if something happened, because I went to Jim Crow schools and then an integrated school, which I hated, high school. I was in fights all the time with the teachers, everybody, principal, everybody. But if I came home and said that the teacher said something racist, she would say, well, what did you say? He said, don't tell me, and I said, don't tell me that white people do bad things. He said, I'm older than you, I know that. What'd you do about it? So if I did something, she would back me up. But don't complain that she's gonna do something about it. Like, why are you telling me? Like, you're not telling me nothing I don't know. Your job is to do something about it, right? And so I was supported in doing things, doing things that when I stood up, my people supported me. Uh,
Wow.
they paid for my trip to the March on Washington. I don't know if I told you that last time. I ain't have any money. I'm a grad. I'm just a student. I'm not even a grad. So I'm an undergrad. I have like no money. I'm nickel dime in it. I'm borrowing my mom's car to go to school. We put together everybody to get lunch so everybody can share the hamburgers and all. And we're having a barbecue. Our family always gathered. Big family. My cousins, Jerome, who owned the building, he had like 5 brothers and sisters, and I had 4 cousins. So, barbecues are like big family things, right?
Mhm.
And we out there in the backyard and everybody barbecuing. And my cousin, they were always on me about politics. My cousin Marshawn worked in advertising, Quaker Oats, Morehouse man, Alpha. Was always telling me I should join a fraternity. I ain't in that Marshawn, I ain't in that stuff, man. Like, leave me alone. And you ought to get into advertising, make some money. So I ain't in that, man. Leave me alone. Man. And then he said, I suppose you go into that stupid march with all them crazy people. I said, what march? He said, they're going all the way down to Washington to march around the monument or something. You're not going? I said, I don't have no money to go. And he said, time out. You got to go. All the crazy people going, you got to go too. So they stopped the barbecue and said, okay, my nickname was Pete. They said, how much does it cost to go? I said it costs $25 round trip for the train. They had 2 charter trains. So they put up immediately, everybody threw in $5. So here's the $25. And they said, I suppose you want to eat while you're down there too. I said, well, it'd be nice. They said, okay, so they threw in another $25. And then they went back to the barbecue. They didn't have no discussion of it. They said, you said, good, go ahead, you can go. That's my family.
Wow.
That's my family. My aunt, who was really very kind of afraid when I came home one night, because I got locked up several times, and I get home late. And my aunt looked at me one time, and I come in, I sit at the table and drink, eat a peanut butter sandwich and drink a glass of milk or whatever. And she said, you would have liked my husband. Now, my uncle, her husband died before I was born. And I said, I never met him. She said, I know. She said, I'll show you some pictures. She brought out pictures of him leading a group of Black workers at City Hall because he organized he organized transit workers. He got the cap on and some stomped down brothers, right? He said, you would have liked him. You like him in a lot of ways. And then that's all she ever said. Then she just took the pictures back and we never talked about it anymore.
Wow.
But that's my family. And the guys at Teletype, the guys I played, they taught me how to play poker and all that kind of, I liked them because they were older than me and they had seen Charlie Parker. And I grew up on bebop and jazz, right? So my cousins would sing me to sleep with jazz, Moody's Mood for Love, there I go, there I go, and so forth. Pretty Baby Out of Soul that snaps my control. All my other cousins would sing Blues in the Night. My mama then told me, and by this time I'd be fast asleep, right? So I grew up in a Black, kind of world in, Chicago. And so I would hang out with the old guys because they actually saw Charlie Parker, and I thought that was like really cool. So I would bug them about Charlie Parker. What they did was they would defend me when people would attack me in other parts of the neighborhood or whatever. And they would say like, hey, you deal with him, you got to deal with us. And so I was okay. The gangbangers in my neighborhood. I lived on the border between Almighty Black Peace Stone Nation, Blackstone Rangers, and the Gangster Disciples, and they were like, just knucklehead gangbangers, man. They're not like, they weren't you couldn't do drugs, so the mafia ran that, so they just fought all the time, and nickel dime hustle stuff, and they were like a royal pain in the butt. But I never talked to them much other than to tell them like, why don't y'all like do something, make some sense. But they listened to me and they knew what I was doing, which I was not aware of at the time. And so sometimes if I'd come home late at night, they would be just standing on the corner or standing in the alley, not pull my car up in the alley. And they would pop out from somewhere and say, what's happening, man? What's happening? I said, I'm okay. I said, man, police are looking for you, but we got the neighborhood, man, so don't worry about it, And so I worked with them. I never told them what to do. I never told them like, join the Marines or whatever. And I tried to get them to use their organization skills to do something other than just fight each other all the time.
Right.
Yeah, but I didn't like lecture them. I would just say like, you're sitting here, man, with your owls swollen up and, your arm all jacked up. And like, what you do? You went in there and got into a fight with another brother. Like, what? Like, when you get out of that? Like, I really don't understand that. When you get out of that? And they said, oh, man, he said this and he said that, man, and black peace don't know back down and blah, blah, blah. I said, white people enjoy that. The more they see y'all fighting, the happier they are, And so that's all I'm going to say. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. But that's my position. And so I never patronized them. They helped me with the school boycotts. We later had a massive school boycott. And the way you got kids out of school was the street gangs did it for you. You could pass out a leaflet like Hyde Park High School. I'll never forget that time. We're standing in front of the school passing out leaflets saying, please boycott. I think I actually found one. I didn't have a chance to send it, but I have we had a Freedom Summer thing. I don't know if you can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, this is the second boycott. The establishment had the first boycott, but we were the renegades and had the second boycott.
And this was still before the March on Washington, correct?
No, this piece is after. The leading up to the march,
okay.
What I did before the march, after, that's what all these other things are. Once people thought I had an organization, people asked me to come help them. So they assumed I had an organization, which I did not have. So I got invited to picket the NAACP, Wilbur Daniels, down at Antioch Baptist Church. I have a picture of that. And we were complaining because he was the head of the NAACP, and we thought he just sold out to the political machine. So we went and picketed his church one Sunday. And much to our surprise, he invited us into his office after the service. Because the deacons wanted to beat us up. The deacon said, Reverend, you give us the word, we'll run them all the way back, Chicago, it's rough and tumble politics. He said, no, I'll talk to him. Wait, I'll talk to him. So they invited us into his, big thing where ministers have this school. He got a church with 1,000 people, so he got some money. And he said, what do you want to talk about? So we laid out all this stuff. It's in one of the articles I sent about why you tied to the machine, like why you selling out black people. And he said, what do you want me to do? I said, why don't you stand with the people, man? Like, come on. He picks up the phone and calls the mayor's office. Right there, we sit right there. We looking like, what? Like, we said like, whoa, I wonder does he really think, like he calls the mayor's office and says, my people had told me to stop hanging around and selling them out, so I got to stand with my people. And then he hung up, and we said like, whoa. Well, what we didn't know was that he was in a fight with the other Baptist ministers for being too radical. And this was his way to break with the machine by saying that we forced him to break with the machine. Mm-hmm. So that made something he wanted to do that he could say we did it, that he didn't do it, So, but I didn't know that at the time, because like I'm 22 years old, I don't know all this stuff. I have no idea what's going on. But I became a friend of his. And he could preach, man. He could like blow your eardrums out at them freedom rallies, man. I mean, he was good. So I worked on stuff in his neighborhood. And then so the organization of parents, it was called the 71st and Stewart Committee. And they were fighting segregated schools in their neighborhood. And what was happening was, this is in August, the Chicago schools were like so messed up. And you had a overcrowded black school that was east of 70, Stewart Avenue, that had 400 more people than capacity, right? 4 blocks west of Stewart Avenue was a predominantly white school that had 500 vacancies. Right? Oh, we said, well, why don't you just let them kids walk across the street and go to that school? Right. They said, no. You know what they did? They were going to build temporary Quonset hut type things, like you used to have down in Dickinson Hall on the campus. Between a railroad track that came from downtown, the stockyards, and an alley. Right? Wow. And they were going to build these, and the trains came by about every half an hour, freight trains, like 50, 100 cars, like rumble, right? And they were going to put these black kids in these little, looked like, kind of trailer park things, rather than let them integrate the school. So what they asked me to do was, would I help them stop the construction of these trailers? And I said, okay, I'm down with that. And they said, well, give us your number and we'll call you when they begin construction, because we had no idea exactly when the thing was going to start. So about a week after I had talked to them, they met me in the park. I got a call 6 o'clock in the morning, get over here to 73rd and Low because the cement trucks are coming in. And it's raining, man. It's like a thunderstorm. 6 o'clock in the morning. So I drive over there with my little Volkswagen. I'm expecting all the people that was at the meeting to be out there with me. We have like 10 people, man. It's like we got a block of 2 ends of an alley with 10 people, right? So they said, this is not gonna work. So what we ended up doing was, the first time I got arrested, I parked my little Volkswagen at one end of the block at one end, and then we lay down in the street, in the curb, so that the trucks couldn't, get in. Well, first of all, it's raining, so when you're in the gutter, here comes all this rain, so you're soaking wet, and it's not very pleasant. And these big cement trucks are rolling up on you and slamming on the brakes like 2 or 3 feet from you, man. Mm-hmm. So you're there down there with these mothers, people who had kids in the school. And I'm saying, like, Mr. Councilman, what do you think will happen if the brakes don't work on one of them trucks? She said, well, it won't matter to you because you won't feel a thing. And I said, that's not helping, So anyway, we got locked up. They threw us in the wagon. They ripped your pants. That's why I started to wear Levi's. Don't wear khakis to a Chicago demonstration, because when the police arrest you, they grab you by the top of your pants and the bottom, and they pull, so the seam breaks. But Levi's, the seams don't break. That's why you wear Levi's. And I wear a hat in the demonstration. I have a straw hat, but I have paper inside because they hit you in the head, man. Mm. So I have it padded with newspaper all around the crown and across the top, because when they come at you, they hit you across the top of the head, gives you a concussion, or they will throw you head first into the police wagon off the side of the wagon. They don't like walk in there. They just like, boom, throw you through the air. Yeah, so it's that kind of world. After I get locked up several times, this is why my cousins think I ought to go on the march, because I've been locked up several times. And, everybody knows me, the neighborhood knows me. And it's not a celebrity, but people know you. Like, I'm safe walking in my neighborhood at night because people know me. Nobody's going to rob me. Blackstone Rangers leave me alone. They grab other people. They come in and say, no, Blackstone, stone to the bone, stone black and all like that. And so I go to the march. We get to the march, and what we had picked up on was that they were supposed to give SNCC a place on the program where SNCC could lay out what they wanted to do in the South, which was way more radical than what Dr. King was talking about, right? So we said, okay, we'll go to the march, but that's what we went for. We didn't want to go here to the regular people, because we already knew what they were going to say. And so, 2 trains, a green train, you had a green ticket, and the blue train and the blue ticket. And we left in the evening and, traveled all night, and we ended up in Washington, D.C. the next morning. And we get out, and there's, people from all over the whole country, man. It's like a lot of people. It's a hot D.C. day. I grew up in D.C., so I knew it was going to be hot, but I didn't think it'd be that hot. It's about 95 degrees, and you're humid. D.C. is always humid. So you're sweating, your clothes are all soggy. You've been on the train because you're sleeping in the seat car. You might have had the leadership might have had a Pullman car, but we had just regular seats, right? And so you weren't very comfortable, and you probably needed to take a shower, but nobody much cared about that. And then when we got to the march, people were just milling around. But what you liked was the vibe. Like young people from the South, people from all these different, flags from all different kind of states, people that are just as kind of excited about you as you were about them.
And would you say,
yeah,
with the demographics there, was it overwhelmingly Black, or was there, other races as well?
Oh, yeah, I would say maybe 2 to 1 Black.
Got you.
No, it's mixed. The United Auto Workers with Walter Reuther supported the march, so they encouraged white trade unionists to go. So if you notice, the march is for jobs and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
to show that it's a working thing. This is Randolph's initiative. And so they're white, it's a liberal thing. That's why you had an integrated platform, with you had, Marlon Brando and, like the Pete Seeger saying, I mean, I like Pete Seeger, but, I would have preferred Odetta maybe. And Mahalia Jackson saying, but the people you wanted to hear John Lewis speak for SNCC, not John Lewis get up there and say what everybody else said. He said, like, whoa, man, like, what happened to what SNCC was supposed to say? Because they censored the speech, man. I mean, they cut out, they chopped it up. So we didn't like that too much. And there was, and James Baldwin, everybody knew James Baldwin had come in from Paris. And you couldn't see he's a tiny little guy, so I never got to actually see him in Washington, D.C. I didn't meet him until he came up here to work with us. And he assumed that he would be on the program. And they didn't put him on the program.
Wow.
Part of that was the homophobic thing, because the people complain about black nationalists. Is the Baptist church was like down. That's why Bayard Rustin couldn't be the co-director of the march.
Oh yeah. Wow.
King and them. That's King and them. People talk about it's Malcolm X and invited James Baldwin to meet with Elijah Muhammad. That's that second essay in the Fire Next Time. He's having dinner with Elijah Muhammad. He ain't having no dinner with Martin Luther King. The Baptist preachers, they never invited him to dinner. So they wouldn't let Bayard be the co-chair of the march, and Baldwin showed up. They said, like, no. I mean, it was like, whoa. And no women spoke.
That's crazy.
And the one gay man, he don't get to speak. And, we know Jimmy was going to fire him up because Jimmy fires up. We just like, and Malcolm talks about that later in Message to the Grass. It's like Baldwin came all the way from Paris and they wouldn't let him talk because they didn't know what he's going to say, which is why we liked him, because you know what he's going to say. So you had that you liked the vibe of the people, but it was we thought the content was a little bit too optimistic. I have a dream and so forth. I mentioned that they announced that Dr. Du Bois had died in Ghana that morning before the march officially started, about 20 minutes before we were supposed to step off. And when Roy Wilkins read that over the loudspeaker, we just kind of moved. We kind of, how you like the air sucked out of you. It's like somebody in your family died. And that's the way we kind of felt. And then we started to move. It wasn't time to move yet. We were supposed to wait for every state by state you're supposed to move. And so we just started to move toward the Lincoln Memorial. And then so the march started 15 minutes early. And all of the leaders, had to get in front so they could lead us because we were going anyway. So you had those kind of moments that were, it was a kind of changing of a kind of era. Like Du Bois, because you thought Du Bois had lived forever, man. I heard Du Bois speak in 1956 at Howard University, and he's like 80-something years old, man. And maybe a little bit older than that. And he spoke, the mic went out, and he spoke without a mic.
Wow.
Filled up Rankin Chapel. The chapel was packed. It's like packed, and you had to put the outside mics work because people came all the way from all around DC, basement of the Founders Library right next to the chapel. And then they had to put mics out over the campus because they couldn't get everybody either in the chapel or in the library.
Wow.
So me and my moms walked out at the speech. There's like 5,000 people out there listening to Dr. Du Bois. I mean, that's Dr. Du Bois, right? People might have thought people didn't like it. People love Dr. Du Bois.
And what would you say for many UMass students, they don't know Du Bois' name beyond the fact that that's the library's named after him. But what was his impact on your generation? What made him such a powerful figure that you had to listen to?
We revered Du Bois. If you had any pretense of being a Black intellectual, Du Bois was the model, right? Du Bois, by the time he was like 30 years old, had written more than most people wrote in their whole lifetime. Du Bois is writing articles for the Berkshire Eagle when he's 15. 15. Wow. Right? He's writing articles. He writes, by the time he gets out of Harvard, he writes the Philadelphia Negro, and he has a doctoral dissertation, and he's barely 30 years old. If he had died in 19, then he did Souls of Black Folk in 1903. He's barely 30 years old. If he had died in 1903, he would have written 3 great books that you still read today. Right? I mean, how many people spend their whole life trying to write 3 great books or 1 great book? Right. But then he kept on going. Right? Founded the NAACP, Pan-Africanists, went to Ghana, so you knew all the, Nkrumah's people. Everybody in the whole, third world knew him. White people in America didn't know him, but Black people around the world, people from Asia knew him, the Japanese knew him, the Chinese knew him, everybody knew him, right? He was the one that said, you can be as smart as you want to be and stand up to white people and make a contribution in a range of kind of activities, where you can be the NAACP, or you can just write books, or you can teach, or you can start a Pan-African conference. So he was like the kind of father figure for the whole 20th century civil rights movement and the Pan-African movement. Now, he's the chair of the 5th Pan-African Conference. Look, when Du Bois died in Ghana, ambassadors, every country in Ghana that had an embassy sent their ambassador except the United States. They didn't send anybody. Every country in the world. They sent their top ambassador. They didn't send an attaché. The ambassador to Ghana went to Du Bois' funeral. The ambassador from China went to Du Bois' funeral. The ambassador from Russia, the ambassador from France. Everybody knew who Du Bois was, right? Du Bois, when Du Bois got locked up in 1953 for, they said he was a communist and all like that, he got letters of support from Bertrand Russell, Albert Einstein, Pablo Picasso.
Wow.
And they let him go. They had let him go. Because they said they thought he was just another Negro. And they were getting letters from like Nobel Prize winners saying, this is Dr. Du Bois. And said, who is that? Because people thought, no, this ain't just Dr. Du Bois. Don't mess with him. And the reason he spoke at Howard was people said that you shouldn't let communists speak at Howard. And Mordecai Johnson, the president of Howard, he's there when I grew up on that campus. He said, you can't tell me who to bring. This is Dr. Du Bois. We let him bring him anytime we want. So that's why they invited him to speak on Howard's campus. Trustees were on the stage. Faculty was there. The thing was packed. The only way we got in was one of my mom's director student teaching. 2 of her student teachers were football players who were doing the door, right? And when they had the capacity, they're supposed to not let you in no more. But they were putting folding chairs in the back, because it was that crowded. And they let us in because they knew my mom. So me and my mom's got 2 of the last chairs in the back row. Don't mess with Dr. Du Bois. Like, don't.
All right.
You may not follow him anywhere, because he went all over the place. But he had a right to do it. But don't mess with him. Yeah. Y'all don't have to like him. We like him.
Yeah. So thank you for that. We are, down to our last 15 minutes. So I think, to kind of wrap this conversation up, let's kind of try and talk about both the original March on Washington and, today's movement, the movements of the 60s versus today. Yeah. And so I guess I'll start by asking, the simple question or difficult question. What similarities and differences do you see between, the movements of the 50s and 60s versus the movement of, this past decade? What differences and similarities do you see?
There's a couple of things. The march, the good feeling of the march didn't last more than a month, because September 15th, and they blew up those kids in Birmingham in that church. And King is talking about, we have a dream, this, that, and the other. And that's an upbeat thing. Like, no, we're going to go back to the South, we're going to fight. These crazy white people blew up those 4 little girls in a church, man. So at this point, you're saying dreaming and all that stuff may not be the way to go.
Right.
That this is going to take a little bit more than dreaming. So you got to, this is going to take some work. And then Malcolm on November 10th gives his message to the grassroots speech, where he talks about, y'all talking about you want freedom and nonviolence, and they blow up your church and kill 4 little black babies. What are you going to do about that? He said, you go fight in a war somewhere for white people, but you won't fight to defend, young black kids getting blown up. So Malcolm is starting Malcolm was on the edge, you like Malcolm, but you didn't want to follow him. I went to the temple number 2 every time Malcolm came to town. I even got in arguments with him and stuff. He's a brilliant sucker. But he loved everybody. The Malcolm you see on the TV is not the Malcolm that interacted with young black people. He liked to argue. He liked to read. He carried paperback books in his pocket. He read all the time. And I challenged him once at one of them meetings. I got up and said something smart ass about house Negro people. That's what it was, house Negroes, field Negroes. And I said, Mr. Malcolm, you can't say that because if the women are in the house, they're getting raped by the master, so they be safer in the field. And he said, well, how you know that? I said, I read Kenneth Stant, The Peculiar Institution. So he wrote it down on a 3x5 card. Came back 6 months later, I'm walking in, he's coming down the street, and he said, hey, you, Kenneth Stamp, come here, let's talk. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, let's talk about, I said, whoa, like time out, like what, how you remember that? He said, remember what? He said, chapter 2, let's talk. I said, whoa, wait, like that's the kind of brain he had.
Wow.
No, he's one that he asked me to join the nation with some other young guys. And I said, I ain't wearing no bow tie. I ain't selling no newspapers. I ain't selling no bean pies. And I'm in Chicago. I'm Mississippi, Chicago. So I love the blues joint. I'm going to hit some Howlin' Wolf. I'm going to drink some gin. Going to eat me a piggy sandwich once in a while. And Malcolm started laughing and said, I used to be there. I said, well, I still am. So I ain't about to go. But they said, you know, I got a lot of coverage in Muhammad Speaks newspaper. You know. And every takeover I had, they would send a reporter. And they also would send somebody from the Fruit of Islam. So if there was any danger, these guys would show up for you. Now, they never said that. You know, they didn't say, they would just say, like, what are you doing? Like, we took about building in Northwestern, the guy said, what's happening up there? I'm going to send a reporter. And he said, and we got, if you need help, we got help. You know, so the reporter came, got a nice story. But if they had attacked us in that building, you know, Fruit of Islam would have rolled on them.
Wow.
But they never said it. So, I mean, I got along with a lot of people who I would never join the Nation of Islam because it's too tight. You know, I mean, I couldn't figure out all that stuff. You know, that wasn't me. But they didn't demand that you did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all you had to do was like, you know, as long as you're doing something positive for Black people, that's what that was. But once they killed the kids, and Malcolm's whole point about why do you want to integrate with people that would do something like that? Like, do you really, really think, you know, and that goes back to Du Bois in the 1930s. Why do you want to integrate your kids into a school with teachers that hate them?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I grew up in a Jim Crow school, so I know what they're talking about. You know, like my best teachers, you know, I didn't have a white teacher till I got to high school. And all I learned, I didn't learn much of anything in high school. I learned everything I learned with brilliant Black teachers, right? So I know that Black people are smart. You had to convince me of that. And the smartest people I knew were Black people. Right? Like my mom's taught Toni Morris and Mary Barack and Roberta Flack. And, you know, like, don't tell me Black people can't do stuff because they walking around when I'm a little kid, like they're in and out of my mom's office. You know, Sterling Brown, E. Franklin Frazier, that's who corrected my term papers when I had to do my homework.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so don't tell me Black people can't run stuff, you know. And all you wanted was what, equal, you know, like give us our share, you know, give us our share of the money and leave us alone. But, you know, turns out that's too much money, so you have to integrate. So that means you got to figure out how to get along with white people. And then you go to integrated school and you're like, you know, that's smart. Like, you know, it's like a big sham. Like we showed up, you know, the whole summer before I got to integrated Roosevelt High School in DC. You know, I'm reading the books. I get the textbooks ahead of time. I'm ready. Like, you know, y'all like, you know, I get there and I look around and say, where all these genius white people y'all be telling us about? Because the people we see in the cafeteria, it's like, no. We kill them on every test, right? I had the top scores in math every year. I don't even like math, but I can do it better than the white kids. I didn't like math, but you studied, the tests were biased. People say the tests, of course they're biased. White people wrote them. We knew that. She just studied twice as hard. We got that. And they thought we were, you know, we take the citywide test. We say, can we leave now because we finished? They say, this is a 2-hour test. Well, I'm finished. They say, well, you only been here an hour. Yeah, but I'm finished. Can we go outside and hang on the playground a little bit? They say, poor little colored people, they couldn't do the test, so they're hanging out on the playground. We killed them. They stopped giving the test. The test didn't show we were stupid. The test was, we smarter than y'all. We smarter than y'all. You know, you had a few white kids that were our equal, right? But then they hung with us. You know, they come sit at the Black table. You know, you want to help us your homework, you come sit where the Black people are, not the other way around. You know, and we don't have that divide you had today because the playgrounds I went to, I helped the guys with math and English. They helped me with wood shop and sheet metal. Well, I wouldn't have graduated. I couldn't, I could mess up some sheet metal. I could take a lathe and jack up some wood. So they taught me through that, and I helped them with English and math. So I wasn't better than them. They had skills I didn't have. When they played ball, they picked me too. So I understand a world where Black people can run things by themselves, right? That's what Malcolm was talking about. Why do you want to go throw that away to go into a place where you won't be treated equally and you have to prove yourself? What you've done is equal to what they have. They just don't know it yet, right? That's where Black Studies came from. The program at UMass was started by a lot of people that came out of Howard University because we knew that Black people were smart. So we just said, just get out the way and leave us alone, and we can do this. Like, we don't want to be like y'all, because y'all don't have that much to offer us. At Northwestern, when I was in the history department, I left early without even barely finishing up, right? Because they didn't have anything to teach me, and they told me that. They said, why are you here? You already know more about this stuff than we do. I said, well, I'm waiting for the war to end so I can get out of here, And then, we took over a building. They started Black Studies. So I had a job for life. I started my own academic discipline and got myself hired, and I've been doing it for 50 years. Most people can't say that. I never taught a course I didn't design myself, right? Because I was always the first one in the door. And they said, what do you want me to do? I said, look, we got 500 Black kids in the auditorium. You can do whatever you want, So that's when the shift comes. The whole thing about there's a tension between Black control versus a society where everybody kind of is all mixed up. Our argument has always been, still my argument, that the people that have made this country what it was are Black people. Du Bois has a book from 1922 called The Gift of Black Folk, right? We're the ones being on the bottom that teach people how to live without a lot of stuff, right? So what do we bring? Coming out of slavery, what do we have? Spirituals. You can't name me a song that slave masters wrote, right? You can't name me this, but if I say nobody knows the trouble I've seen, you know what I'm talking about. But you don't know who wrote that, but you still sing it. An illiterate slave sang that, and we still sing it. There's not a song from the 19th century other than the Star Spangled Banner, which did not match up to Diptera voice and say, right? That there's no culture that comes out of slavery, right? White people don't know how to enjoy life. They spend all their time working. Black people say, no, man, you work to live, not live to work. So the brothers say, whoa, I got a raise. I'm taking next week off. He said, no, I got enough money for next week, so I'm taking the week off. What are you going to do? Nothing. Chill. Why do I have to work all the time? So, well, you got to work. No, you don't. No, you have to live. Your life is not work. Right? That's what Black people bring. Black people get a lot of money. They don't go out and invest it in the stock market. They buy something to show that they got some money, and they chill, and they go, they take the kids to the thing and whatever, they hang on the corner. You got to have something to show the bling thing, because that's an African thing. What's the point of having gold if it's in Fort Knox? Gold got to be on my finger, man. Got to be right, so you can see it, man. What's the point of wearing a blue suit when you can wear a gold suit? So you see me coming, right? They don't know how to live. Don't have no rhythm. They look to us.
Professor Bracey, we got 5 minutes left, and we have to get to at least a couple of these pointers at the end.
That's the point about today.
Got you.
Today is you have 50 years from when I started off. You now have a movement of young people who already have established in American culture the primacy of African American culture. Right, so you don't have to argue with Elvis Presley. Ain't no such person. Right, nobody will make an argument that Britney Spears can hang with Beyonce. That's absurd. You wouldn't even start that. Don't even say that. Right, but we had to listen to Elvis Presley and all that stuff. Now there's no such people. Right, if you want to see what defines the culture, you gotta go to what are Black people doing? What is Kanye dropping? What is Jay-Z dropping? What is Nas dropping? You don't say, oh, I wonder what the latest thing is coming out of Taylor Swift. Not really.
Yeah.
She's good for what they do, but that
Right. That I will say the celebrity talk brings me to one question I wanted to ask you about, the importance of the black celebrity and the black athlete in movements like this. How do you feel about that? What is the responsibility of these figures in a movement like this?
For the first time, and Harold Cruz called for this back in 1967 in Crisis for the Negro Intellectual. He says, what we should take control of are the things that we do better than anybody else. So we produce culture and we produce superiority in certain fields. We should control those fields and then use that for our politics. What this generation of black athletes has done is exactly that. LeBron James said, I got $30 million a year. I don't need no more, so I can do whatever I want. You can't buy me because you don't own me. Right? I don't need you. You need me. Right? So he is free to say whatever he wants, and nobody tell him to sit down and shut up. Right? He's not Michael Jordan. He's not the earlier guys who you the first one. He's not Jackie Robinson. Like Jackie, don't say nothing because you got to get along with the white people. LeBron ain't got to get along with nobody but LeBron. Mm-hmm. Right? And all the rest of them brothers say, if LeBron can stand up, I'm standing up too. Right? Because the person that can take you on the court and run you off the court also got consciousness. Didn't even go to college. But he knows where he came from. And he said, no, I want to take this and get the people where I came from. And I want to move all of them, and y'all are in the way. Right? I got $30 million, but I'm one of y'all. Right? They know who they are despite the money that they make, and they make huge amounts of money. Mm-hmm. And they give a lot of it back. And that's what you judge them on. You say, okay, you got 30 million, how much are you giving back? You can't spend 30 million. The consciousness is much more sophisticated now. And they're much more, like they were talking about boycotting the games last night because they, shot the other, Jacob Blake. Just like, at some point you got to say, like, come on. But they're not afraid to say that. They don't say, if I say something, I might lose my job. They say, no. If we don't play, they don't have no league. Mm-hmm. No, we know who runs this. They ain't gonna play. The coaches ain't gonna play. We are the ones people come to see. Like, we know that. So, and the National Football League messed up because they didn't know that. So now they're trying to regroup and figure out how to deal with that, rather than listen to some, the people that look at them. If you have a sport where you put black people in a place where the only opportunity they have to excel is athletics, then they become good at it because that's what you put your energy into, right? But they know that because that gives them a monopoly on a particular kind of part of the society that they know they're indispensable. Mm-hmm. Same thing with hip hop culture. It's like, no, we decide that. He said, you don't have to give us all the money, but you got to give us a whole lot more than we ever had before, right? And if you don't, then you don't have no culture because go ahead without us. Where you gonna go without us? They started off trying to give you Vanilla Ice. Where did that go? Right? I mean, that's like, but that was supposed to be the Elvis Presley of hip hop. It was like, no. The only guy that can get in there a little bit is Eminem because he knows how to be humble and he don't go around telling everybody stuff that he's not. So they tolerate him, and he's the only white person in his group. So it's not like 4 white guys up there doing hip hop, right? Mm-hmm. You don't see that. Like, you don't. Right. Yeah. You got it's validated by black people, and they know that they control that. They're the producers, they're the owners. It started with Prince, started with Michael Jackson. Like Prince just skipped the record companies entirely. He said, look, I just do this and I sell it myself. I don't need you to advertise for me. Like, my fans know where I am. Michael Jackson bought his own catalog, and they got mad at him because he bought the Beatles catalog. But Michael Jackson took all this money and went around buying the catalogs of all these older black artists who weren't getting no royalties. Right? Michael Jackson did. Now, Michael Jackson, killed himself trying to keep making himself over. I mean, he had a horrible life, but he knew the business, So he said, okay, Chuck Berry ain't making no money because Chuck Berry don't own the copyright. He said, I'll buy Chuck Berry's catalog and give it to Chuck Berry. Now Chuck Berry makes the money. Crazy. Right? Then he bought the Beatles catalog. All of a sudden, Michael Jackson's crazy. Michael Jackson been weird his whole life because he grew up on the stage. He didn't have no real life. Mm-hmm. But they didn't get mad at him till he bought the beats. He said, no, you can buy black people's stuff. Don't be buying white people's stuff. Michael Jackson said, I can buy whatever I want. I got $1 billion. Right. So they come after you at that point. They can't come after LeBron that way.
Right.
Because he's surrounded by his own people. That's the consciousness. Your generation is not happy with symbols. because you see that symbols don't mean much. And you say, well, why were the symbols up there in the first place? So you're not impressed by taking down the statue of Robert E. Lee. Why you put him up there?
Mm-hmm.
Why should you get credit for taking down something you know should put up there in the first place?
Right.
You're going to change the name of the Redskins. Why you call them the Redskins in the first place?
Right.
You know, like,
right.
why should you get congratulated for doing something right?
Right.
You should have been right. See, that's where you all start. See, you already know that the system is wired against you, so I don't have to convince you of that. I don't have to say, look, my brother, you know, things are really messed up and rich people get more than poor people. You say, like, I know that. Like, why are you telling me? How you deal with it? You start off where we had to convince people. I would have to argue with people that they weren't going to be able to make it to be a Rockefeller, right? Because the way the thing is set up, they want you to keep trying that. But you're not going to make it by yourself. You got to hang with some other people. Now, you can get a collective and get Black people moving, but if you think you're going to jump up there by yourself and come out somewhere like that, it's not happening, right? And if you are, you'll be the only one because there could be no two of you, right? You already understand that, so you think collectively already.
Right. Yeah.
You check with yourself. You communicate with yourself, and you don't break with the past because that's what the big argument always was. You know what we did. You know, hip hop is historical. You sample, you draw from the past. You know, you revere the elders, and you take that wisdom and knowledge and you build on that, rather than say we're gonna do it all by ourselves. We're gonna start all over again. You know, so you're not making that mistake. Well, don't trust anybody over 30. You said no. We trust them. They can't do what we can do. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's an amazing consciousness for young people. You know, and you have white people that follow you. We didn't want white people to follow us necessarily. You know, it got to be a Black thing. You said, no, it'd be a Black-led thing, but anybody wants to follow Black people is welcome to come along. So y'all got that going. So if you say everybody hit the street, here comes some white people, you don't say, why are the white people out here? You say, how come ain't more of you out here? Right? Rather than saying, like, what are you doing here? You know, and they don't mind following Black leadership. That's new and that's different, right? The whole thing with the gender thing, you know, you could always terrorize a Black movement by saying, do you want your daughter to marry a Negro? Nowadays, that doesn't mean a thing. You know, like white females voted for Barack Obama and nobody don't like, oh, he's a Black man, like, so what? I mean, that's meaningless. That's meaningless to your generation. It doesn't mean a thing. You can't scare white females by saying Black men are gonna get them. They look like, what are you talking about? It's like, I pick who I go out with. Anybody gonna tell me who to go out with? So that they have control, because women get control of themselves. They don't need to be protected from anybody. They'll decide how they live.
Yeah.
And if they decide they want to go to a Black Lives Matter rally, then they go.
Right.
They don't have to check with their parents. They don't say, oh, you know, if you go out there with those colored people, they're really bad. Say, like, please, like, give me a break. You know, and they got stuff in their ear that they don't want their parents to hear them listening to.
Yeah. So, Professor Bracey, we're pretty much out of time here. Hopefully, UMass isn't going to be mad at us for going on a little too long. But I'm going to ask, I guess, one final question for you. And it's just been something that I've been kind of struggling with these past couple months. How do you remain, you know, optimistic that change will come when you see, you know, with countless protests across the country in these past couple months, we still see, you know, Black lives being targeted by the police. How do you remain optimistic?
It's not a question of being optimistic. It's a question of what do you want to do with your life? You only have so much time, and you may not solve all of the world's problems for Black people, but you do your part. And that's what your life is. That to me is the most, that's what you do. You don't train your kids for freedom, you train them to fight for freedom. And all you want them to do is, you know, what you may not win. See, I may not win. You know, like I thought I would see it in my lifetime, but that's not gonna happen. You may not see freedom for Black people in your lifetime. Your job is not to say I quit because I tried it for a week and, you know, we didn't win, so I'm going home. No. You say, I will do as much as I can, as long as I can, and so that my kids and grandkids won't have to do what I did. Right?
That's powerful.
And that's my job. My job is to clear space so that my kids can come and move beyond me, and their kids can come and move beyond them. And if I can, and this is why I teach. You know, if I can clear space for you so that you don't have to go through what I went through, then you can go take it to another level. But
Right.
you have to, but that's your job, right? So, and you do you go as far as you can. So when you're, because the thing I would hate the most, this is the thing that checks me all the time. You don't want to be getting a phone call from your granddaughter or your grandson, and they're saying, Grandpa, you lived during the civil rights movement. What did you do? And you said, oh, I wasn't in that because they might get in trouble. They will call up somebody else. So you got to be able to answer that phone call and say, oh, yeah, let me tell you what I did. And then your grandkids will love you. And they know that you've done something. And they don't think you're a chump, right? They don't say, Grandpa just started, he was in business school trying to make money. That ain't about nothing. They want to know, like, oh. So people say, what did you do? I can say, well, I got arrested. You got arrested? I say, I don't like it. I wouldn't recommend it. But you have to be prepared to sacrifice. You have to be prepared. You have to be committed to moving the world to a better place. And if you work on that, what better life can you have? And I'm not a religious person, but if that doesn't get you into heaven, then I don't want to go.
Wow.
If people go to church and that's all they do, I'm sorry, I ain't doing that. I'd rather I go to church once in a while, but I'd rather spend the rest of my time trying to move people to a better place.
Wow.
And if that doesn't count, then wherever that is, I don't want to go. I want to go where people are, moving people to a better place. And that's what other life can you have?
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Professor Bracey, for taking time out of your day to talk to me. And thank you, UMass, for, giving us this opportunity to have a great conversation. But I think that's going to wrap this conversation up.
Okay. Yep. It's been fun.
Yep.